Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. This is going to be a quick little settings guide. We're going to start with the in-game settings that'll be applicable for all players. We're going to end with PC-specific settings. So just so you know, console players, you can tune out halfway through. Preset under the gameplay tab here is automatically set to competitive for any online competitive game mode. So when we're talking mostly about Ultimate Team, so we don't have to worry about auto shots or assisted headers, any of that stuff. Shot assistance, I'm doing precision. We had precision last year, I did it for last year as well. I tested both out. Assisted and precision. I haven't done manual, and I don't think anybody does, so it's not really recommended. But I've tested out both precision and assisted, and precision is more likely to go off target, but when you do get it on target, it's more to the corner if you can aim it properly. So you end up scoring, in my opinion, more goals than not. The assisted is a little bit less stressful, you know, if you're in a one-on-one and you're just needing to dribble that final player or dribble that goalkeeper, and then you don't quite manage to flick the left stick back to the goal. If you kind of struggle with that kind of thing, maybe keep it on assisted. But if you've played the game for a while and you're familiar with how it works, then I definitely recommend precision. I think more shots go in overall. If you're new to it, you know, maybe keep assisted for your competitive game modes. But if you get the time to experiment around with it, again, definitely recommend precision. Time finishing on, basically, if a shot's going to go in without time finishing, don't bother using it. If it's not going to go in, then you might as well go ahead and try it. So most of your long shots, most of your tighter angle shots, or ones that are more getting closed down by the goalkeeper or by an opponent, the time finishing is more likely to give you a more accurate shot. So again, if you don't think it's going to go in, if you're taking a shot you don't think is going to go in, try to time finish it. It's going to give it a better chance. Through pass and not pass, both semi. I don't think you can do assisted for these, but I've never messed with manual. I know some people who have, but I keep all the settings pretty much assisted. I'm taking some of the stress off of myself. There's enough to worry about in-game without kind of, you know, worrying about if your passes are going to be accurate enough or not, and you have to be perfectly accurate on the left stick every time. Is there a better skill gap if you do semi for ground passes? Maybe, but I'm keeping it assisted because I've done that for years. I'm used to playing the game for, it's been like 11 years for me, so I'm not really looking to mess with these settings now. Pass receiver lock is late, so that's if you're aiming with the left stick and then at the last moment you switch to another player, you realize, oh, that guy's actually covered, I'm not going to be able to make that pass. If you're on late, you're able to switch pretty late on into, you know, after actually pressing the pass button. The other ones are more restricted to you hit the button, you're pretty much locked into making that pass. I recommend late. This one I have not messed with, but I also don't do precision passes, so that's a little beyond me, I will admit that. Clearance assistance, directional. I think classic will just kind of boot the ball out wherever. I definitely recommend directional, being able to at least put it down the field if you want. The defending types I don't think are worth messing with. Advanced defending gives you just more options. The seal out is the X button press, which is like that shoulder barge tackle. Good for bruiser plus players or players with high strength. I don't recommend switching this because you're just limiting your options on defense there. Pass block is just kind of, I think, additional interception support, so definitely recommend that on too. Auto switching, I've tried only on loose balls just so it stops automatically switching me on corners, and it didn't do anything. It still just kind of moves you around randomly on corners, so on air balls, on loose balls, this is what pretty much everybody uses. Auto switching move assistance, I think, is the... Yeah, if you switch your player, if the game switches your player for you, there's a short little buffer period where it'll keep moving that player in that direction, so it gives you time to adjust to the new player you're controlling because the AI decided to move you. But if you've got decent enough reaction times, then it's just a hindrance, so I definitely recommend none. Right stick switching is classic for me. The adaptive makes it take longer. The idea is if you flick the right stick, you can hold it down, and the longer you hold it down, the further away it'll move the player switch to. But it just means it takes longer, so you can't really like flick to the next person very quickly. And I find it quicker to just flick rather than like flick and hold and wait for it to get all the way over there. Player relative or ball relative is up to you. I do player relative. It just makes the most sense. I kind of center the game around who I'm controlling at the moment. Ball relative would just switch it to wherever the ball is. You have to flick up, down, left, right based on the ball position to move with the right stick switching. Play relative makes more sense to me. My switching sensitivity is on 7, so you have to make sure you're pretty accurate with the right stick, but it means that the game's not really like guessing your input and putting it on somebody else instead. Next player switching is best player will be determined by various factors. I've done the game for so long, I just kind of keep these on the classic settings. I don't think there's much to gain from the other things, although if you notice yourself particularly weak at a certain aspect of defense, you can try using these to mitigate that one thing. I'm just going to recommend classic though. Reaction time calibration, I think they've updated the message in the side there, because this setting made no sense at the beginning. What it actually is, you know, as you're moving throughout the game on defense, the player with the reticle above their head that you're not controlling, which means the one that it will switch to if you press L1, is always moving around, right, based on where the ball's moving and all of that. If you press L1, sometimes you'll press it not realizing it had swapped to another person, so you end up controlling the wrong player. This gives you a little buffer period for that moment of, oh, I didn't realize that the reticle above somebody else's head was actually on somebody else. The game had just decided that moment to swap it over. Again, it gives you a little buffer period, but if you've played the game for a while, I think it's going to mess you up. Player lock, I don't really use. I think there's a definite advantage to using it in a game. It's not something I enjoy doing, but if you enjoy doing it, absolutely, like, it's perfectly fine. But there's only a benefit to having that on, no real reason to turn it off. Save assistance doesn't matter unless you're doing pro clubs or something. Analog sprint I have off, again, kind of a legacy setting. I've never messed with it too much. The other downside of this one is if you don't realize you're not pressing the button all the way down, or if it takes you just that extra millisecond to push the button all the way down, then you're not getting the full benefit of a full sprint right away. So I definitely recommend keeping that off. Difficulty level, this is a superstition where I've always kept it on beginner, as if that makes the game easier in some way. As if like the AI is harder against you if it's on legendary when you're in online game modes. I do not actually believe that's a thing, but I always keep it on beginner because I don't do offline game modes, and again, just a little superstition thing. Camera, I've done co-op for the longest time with the maximum height and the lowest amount of zoom, so the camera is as far away as it possibly can be. This lets me see the whole field. I can see what plays are developing earlier on and get a slight advantage over the opponent of going, oh hey, I think the play might actually move to this location, and I know I'm going to have these players there already. If you're learning dribbling, it's not necessarily a bad idea to try, I think tele is the other one most people use. A little bit closer in, it might help you understand some of the animations, get you a little bit closer to your player to, again, understand where their body weight is shifting and all of that to try and help you dribble. But mostly if you're just learning, if you've played the game for a while, I think co-op's going to be the best one. And then again, height and zoom just as far away as possible. So 20 and 0 here. The rest I think is all preference, like power shot zoom, and then the amount that the camera swings. Visual is all preference. Again, these are what I have. I like having, there, you can see mine just in case you want. I like having the player name above the players instead of the opponent's username. Audio settings are up to you. Simulation, CPU sliders, rules, those are all offline. Accessibility is not something I've messed with other than the brightness, but these are all like color blindness and other settings like that. Now the final screen here under display configuration, half of these settings are for console and half aren't, so we'll go through the console real quick first. I don't actually know if console gets VSync or these other ones. I'll have off. VSync definitely, no matter what, increases your input lag. It's to reduce screen tearing, but it's really bad for input lag, so I don't recommend having that on. Changing your resolution, I've never heard of another game having this on the fly, like, I don't know, so I would just take that off. Cutscene quality is just kind of like save resources for your PC. Pretty much everything else is low, except for rendering quality medium. I like having my settings as low as possible to make sure I'm getting as much reduction to input lag as you can. These are what I have. If you like having higher graphic settings, it's fine. I know some people really don't like looking at the grass quality being lower or anything, so if you want higher, again, up to you. But these are going to be the most competitive settings to make sure you're getting, again, as quick of a response time as you can. Now for the PC-specific settings, Refresh rate and frame rate are locked in-game to 144 as the max and 120 as the max, unless you do no limit, which I don't recommend. It's variable, and I think that messes with you more than just having it locked to a specific frame rate. But it's really frustrating that you can't actually fix these in the game menu. So you have to find this folder here. This is under your app data folder, which is really hard to find, so I normally just end up searching for FC setup through the whole PC and just let it load for a while and then find this folder. But you find this one here, and this will pull up this lovely little Word document where you can adjust the refresh rate and the max frame rate to whatever you want it to be. My monitor is 390 Hz, which is really high for a monitor. So you just want to make sure you're setting these to as high as the refresh rate can go. Frame rate is normally best if you can match it to the refresh rate of the monitor, but 390 frames would be really high and taxing for the PC, so the next best thing is to have it. The next best thing after that is to, divide it by 4, but dividing by 2 is normally the next best performance, as I understand it, so I'm just cutting my refresh rate of the monitor in half for the frames. And then I recommend going under Properties and setting this file to read only. That makes sure that whenever the game updates, it's not just like deleting this document and creating a new one with the default settings. Read only means it cannot adjust this document. So hopefully that means these settings in here will stay the same throughout the rest of the year. We'll go through Nvidia settings real quick, which will be, once again, as low and as competitive as possible. So these will be the best for input lag reduction. First 6 I'll have off. Again, if you want higher graphics, you can. If you want to change these settings for other games where you want higher graphics, again, perfectly fine. FC, you just want as much response time as you can, so all off on those. The low latency mode on Ultra is definitely really important. This is by far the best input lag reduction setting in there. Fixed refresh on the monitor, don't mess with G-Sync or any of that other stuff. I mean, if you're having screen tearing, that's fine, but that's the only benefit of it, is just to reduce screen tearing. Prefer max performance on the graphics card, just to make sure it's always pushing out as much as it can. Refresh rate, you lock to highest available. Don't let the application mess with that either. So hopefully in this menu, it's also helping the game understand, okay, what the refresh rate on the monitor should be. And then down here, these ones I believe are all changed. I've got on, I think allow is default, but then on here, high performance, and then on. These are all, you will see at the bottom there, they'll say performance related content. So this one, select on for higher performance, this one on for higher performance, allow for higher performance, and then high performance obviously over high quality. Nope, that is not what I meant to do. Keep it on high performance, please. Yeah. Anyway, the only other setting in the Nvidia menu here is under adjust desktop size and position. There's a, do you want the display or the GPU to handle the scaling of the monitor? That is entirely up to the monitor. Some monitors have really good scaling settings default in them. Some monitors do not. So I can't really help you with that one. It depends on how new and how high quality your monitor is. So mess with that yourself and see whichever one feels better. The only other thing I know to point out is there's a software called Lord of Mice that's meant for overclocking your mouse, but it can overclock other devices. So that is this one here. Go ahead and download this if you're on PC, if you want to. And that will pull up with this application here. It'll default you to the mice tab, but if you select all, you go here, no, this one. Your controller should be listed under USB audio device wireless controller. It should be, most controllers are, and it should start default with, this saying default and this one saying 4 or 5. If you go ahead at the bottom left, hit filter on device, maximize the number here, and restart, this program will overclock your device. So I'm using a DS4 controller. The DS4 has a default polling rate of 250 Hz. That is 4 milliseconds. 1000 Hz is 1 millisecond. So doing this will give you an extra 3 milliseconds, supposedly, on your performance. Is that a big deal? Should console players be that worried about this? No, I understand being a little upset about it, but no, you shouldn't be too worried about it. Human reaction times are like 300 milliseconds or something like that. And then there's something like 35 milliseconds from the console to the monitor, and on top of that, monitor, the monitor takes like another 20 or 30 milliseconds to display the screen itself. So you're looking at 350 whatever, milliseconds. On top of that, does an extra 4 milliseconds really hinder you that much over an extra 1 millisecond? It really doesn't. But if you're looking to squeeze as much performance out of your device as possible, then this is something you can check out. I believe that'll be all I have here, so if you have any other questions for me, please feel free to ask. I've done high-level FIFA for a really long time now, and I did competitive Rocket League, so I'm used to messing with my PC settings. But yeah, if there are any of the in-game settings you want, any other like programs you want me to talk about, if this thing would be beneficial or not outside of the game, or other Windows settings or anything like that, again, please let me know in the comments. I'll do my best to get back to all of you. I do hope this was helpful. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.